What's going on, world? It's your man T-Ray the Violinist. I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Power to Win podcast, where we as a community tap into our power to win. So I want to first thank everyone for their support thus far. We're about to roll into episode 3. So if you haven't checked out the first 2 episodes of the Power to Win podcast, I encourage you to go back and listen to those and then listen to this particular episode. So far, we talked about just starting. So creating that momentum to just start within the new year as being 2025. And then last week we talked about people will quit on you, but don't quit on yourself. So both of those are very, very important topics that I think that everyone out there can relate to. So on this week's episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about self-sabotage. This is something that I've been thinking about the last couple of days. We're about 3 weeks and some change into the new year 2025. And I think about some of the goals that I've set for this particular year and where I am kind of mentally and then just in general with my daily trajectory as it pertains to those goals. So we've heard the term self-sabotage. So for those of you who may not know what self-sabotage is, self-sabotage essentially means that you physically or mentally do something that disrupts the progress of being able to attain your goals and achieve your goals and just continue to progress and be successful in life. So I think about a lot of the situations that I've had in my own particular life and how I've set a lot of, audacious goals that I've wanted to accomplish over time. And some of those, are very very time oriented. So some of them I was like, I want to lock in and do this in a particular amount of time. But then on the other hand, there were some of them that are more long term, but for whatever reason, I get lost in the um my perspective gets lost, if you will. So I lose perspective of like the mindset that I realized that this is a long-term goal that I wanted to accomplish. So those are some of the things that I've been thinking about. And I think about how I've had a lot of goals that I've wanted to accomplish over the course of, my life. And just in perspective, these 10 years, 10, 11 years, I should say, being a full-time artist and entrepreneur, and how a lot of times we can be our own sounding boards and we can, get continue to be our own echo chambers, if you will. So we think about things, we start something, but then we, lose the momentum for whatever reason. But and a lot of times it's because of a mental aspect of just being like, man, like, am I making the progress that I want to make? You know, you start to overthink, you start to have, paralysis by analysis. So there are all these different things that we deal with and I personally dealt with that make self-sabotage, right? So there's not just the mental aspect of self-sabotage, the conversation you're having with yourself, but there's also the physical aspect of self-sabotage. What we're consuming, maybe food, maybe social media content, maybe the people we're around, our environment. So there are a lot of different aspects that contribute to the topic and the ethos that is self-sabotage. And I really wanted to dig into this subject today because I think where I am in my life and going through a lot of transitions and life changes, this is something that I have continued to deal with, and that's something that I want to eradicate fully before I continue moving on into this next chapter in this next phase, because I know where it leads to. I know that there's been a lot of times that I was on the right path and I was doing great, and something happened, whether it be something that happened like between me and another person, or just losing my momentum for whatever reason. And I just kind of think about how those things would always put me in a place mentally where it's like, man, I had this great momentum. I was doing great. I was doing everything I needed to do. I had my workout set up. I, was meal prepping and doing X, Y, Z. And then there's something that just threw me off. And it didn't just throw me off for a day or two. It's something that just kind of derailed the whole scheme, derailed the whole motivation, the mindset, everything. So I want to talk about those things today. So one of the questions I've asked myself, and I want to pose to you is, why do we self-sabotage? Like, what is the thing that causes us to self-sabotage and put ourselves in a place where we have to dig ourselves out of this hole, whether it be, mentally, our environment, financially, whatever it might be. What is the thing that is making us self-sabotage? And as I thought about this, I thought about the thing of we are all habits, we are all creatures of habit, right? So all of us have certain habits, whether they're good or bad, that we have created and adapted to over the years. And it's very difficult in a lot of cases to just kind of stop how we've been doing things, right? So, like I said, mindset is one thing. So if we've continued to think in a negative way, that can, make us think in a negative way, like something can trigger us like real quick, and it'll put us in a place of like thinking negatively and thinking about environment. Something may trigger you to, you're like, man, I'm in a great environment now, but then something triggers you, and like say for instance, you're cleaning, you clean your space up because you're like, I know that when I have a clean space, a not cluttered space, I can think clearly, I can work efficiently. I feel like I'm optimizing the time that I have in the day, and then something happens and it triggers you to go back to another place, or you get super busy, and then next thing you know, you're not washing dishes, you're not washing clothes, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not eating the right types of food, so you start eating fast food, and then all these things just kind of snowball, and then you find yourself in the place of like, man, like, how did I end up back here, right? So, us having that self-awareness and realizing that our habits really truly create our daily, activities and how we approach them. So why do we self-sabotage? Some of it is consciously, some of it is self-consciously, a lot of it is because of habit, some of it is because of, an addiction of some sort, whatever they might be. It could be social media, it could be, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. So there's a myriad of things that that put us in a place to self-sabotage without us even really truly knowing it. Goals and expectations. I think that's another big thing. So if you are someone who is, super driven and very ambitious about the way that you want to go about achieving your goals, um, and I'm speaking to myself on this one too. It's like you can you can get in a place of not managing your expectations. You may think that you can do these five grandiose things in 1 month, but then it's like, nah, man, that's not gonna do it. That's really not gonna do it, man. Like you gotta take your time and really build out each of these goals and make a tangible, actionable plan that's gonna that's gonna create the environment, create the mindset, create the momentum, for you to be able to attain this goal. Because inevitably what happens is if we, set a goal and then we have an expectation and we don't meet that expectation, whether it's the time frame, whether it's the, our quota for how many clients we wanted to get this month, how we wanted to engage and how we wanted to grow our reach on social media, within a shorter time frame, we can start to self-sabotage and be like, man, I don't even know why I'm doing this. So you start thinking about all these different things, you start to spiral and go down this rabbit hole of things that don't even really, relate to this particular aspect of what it is you said you wanted to accomplish. So we need to be able to manage our expectations when it comes to setting goals, because I think from my own personal perspective, and I say when I say personal, anytime I say personal, most times I'm saying from, my perspective as a person, whether it's in my personal life or business life, I realize that um self-sabotage can comes from a place for me most times of setting a grandiose goal or setting a goal and not having the infrastructure in place to reach that goal, or thinking I can reach it in a certain amount of time, and then when I don't reach it, I start to think about, like what is the reason why I didn't attain this goal, what, so then I start the self-doubt talk. Self-doubt and negative self-talk is a big one. Like it will literally destroy you. I can think about a time just a couple of years ago. We're in 2025. Um, this had to have been 2023, early 2023. And I remember saying, okay, I'm going to set out to attain my goals. I'm going to set out to be the best version of myself that I can be, which is always the goal, not even every year, just every day. I'm going to set out to do my best. And the the approach that I took to that was that I'm going to talk to myself negatively. And you're probably saying, what do you mean by that, T Ray? Like how did you talk to yourself negatively? An example would be is say I had a performance, right? And overall everything probably went well with the performance. You know, the sound was good, the energy was good, but there was this one thing that didn't go accordingly or didn't go how I thought it should go. And afterwards, after the performance, when I'm by myself, when I'm in my car, headed home, I just have some time to myself, you know, to think. I would start beating myself up and say, man, you didn't do, you know, you didn't do the performance to the level that you should have. Or if it's a physical endeavor, because something that I've struggled with for years now is just how I've approached, you know, workouts and fitness and wanting to, you know, build this, you know, this this physique, if you will. And, you know, like many years ago, I wanted to be a model. So I knew that me being a model, little known fact, I did want to be a model. Might still be in my future, who knows? But I always had a problem, you know, figuring out what workout was going to work best for me. And I would get to a point where I start making progress and everything is going good. And then something happens, or I just start to, you know, look at the physical, right? So, some people deal with, you know, body dysmorphia. I don't know that, you know, my, you know, assessment of my, you know, aesthetic assessment of my physique was to is to that point of this body dysmorphia. But I would think about those things and I would get caught up in looking at the, you know, the glass that's half empty, if you will. And I think that one of the biggest things that we can do to mitigate self-sabotage and create the best, you know, environment for the best outcome for us is to give ourselves grace and manage our expectations when it comes to reaching our goals. And know that where you are right now, you did not get there overnight. And that's something at this point in my life and career, I have to continuously tell myself. It's like, you did not get here overnight. You did not build a brand overnight. You did not become a proficient professional violinist overnight. It was something that came with days, weeks, months, and years and years and years and years and years of practice and consistency and falling down, getting back up, being told no, continuing to go forward until you got the yes that you were looking for. And I have to think about those things when it comes to, you know, self-sabotage and how to mitigate that. And I want you to think about that as well. Think about the things that you have worked to accomplish in your life and how some of those goals you've accomplished because you did things a certain way. You had a certain template, you had a certain mindset, you did certain preparation. And then I want you to think about the things that you haven't accomplished, the things that, you know, you say, man, I started out doing really good. I started like we're still in January. Like, you know, there's a lot of people who have been consistent with working out every day or every other day since January 1. And this becomes the time where the habit gets built or the consistency and discipline, you know, the discipline muscle becomes the discipline muscle, and the habit of working out or exercising comes into play because we start to think about the results, right? But think about the process. Think about being engaged in the process of whatever it is you're doing every single day, because that is going to help you mitigate self-sabotage. So ways to proactively prevent and eliminate, if we can, self-sabotage. We want to change our thinking patterns, and that's something I've kind of already discussed. Changing our thinking patterns, changing the way we're framing our perspective about what it is we're doing, what it is we're working to accomplish, that is going to help us tremendously to create an environment. And that environment is the next thing. Changing our environment to make sure that we are in a conducive space to um, create and attain our goals. So, like I used the example earlier, you clean your space up, your home, your apartment, your studio, whatever it may be, and you clean it up, and you know that your space being clean is going to help you. It's going to help you do your best work. It's going to help you have a clear mind. It's going to help you go into every situation in your life with a more broader perspective and a more positive perspective, if you will. And then if you, like I said, things, you might start getting busy. You start to accumulate clothes and you stop washing dishes. So you inevitably start eating fast food, or you start eating out more. So all of these things take away from your environment being what it needs to be. And this is not just, for your home. This can also be, the environment that you're working in, right? Your work environment. If you don't work from home, it can be conducive or non-conducive. It can be toxic in some cases. Where you're hanging out, where you're socializing. If you want to stop, eating fast food, you probably are eating more clean food. You should probably start hanging out or choosing to go to restaurants and places that have better food or more healthy food options as it pertains to your perspective. If you want to stop, drinking so much, maybe you should not go to the bar after for happy hour and all these different things. So, and I use all of these as examples to widen the perspective of like what it means like for your environment to help you be more conducive, to have a positive outlook, and to get away from self-sabotage. The next thing, once again, self-talk. So I talked about how I used to talk to myself in a negative way. I would beat myself up and say, man, you're not going hard enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. But I would neglect to look at the things that were actually going well for me, and things I was actually progressing in. So once again, you can't look at the glass half empty. You have to look at it as half full, and that you're working to fill the other 50% of that glass up, because that's truly going to help you. Self-awareness. Self-awareness is super, super important, super key. So I'll use the analogy of the clean space in the clean room one more time. So when you realize that your space is getting to a place where, oh, you just don't feel like, you don't feel like it's what it should be, right? You know something is off. That's the self-awareness that's going to help you to take a pause, think about what it is that you need to readjust or lock back into, so that you can, not go to that wormhole and that rabbit hole of self-sabotage. Because once you're there, it's so hard to get out of. And I say this from personal experience, and I'm sure some of you out there can attest to that as well. So, ways to be proactive. Number one, change your thinking pattern, change of environment, cleaning up your environment, positive self-talk, and having self-awareness. And remember, you are meant to be great. There is no part of you that is meant to be mediocre. There's no part of you that is meant to not have the life that you desire. There's no part of you that is not capable of building the life that you desire and building the environment that you desire and having the positive self-talk, the positive awareness, and building, the life of your dreams. Negative thoughts, I want you to remember this. Negative thoughts have no power. They have no power over you. They have no power over your situation. They have no power over your goals. The only person that has power is you in the situation. Now, you can choose to give the negative self talk, the negative environment, you can choose to give it the power if you choose to. But remember that you have the discernment, you have the capability, and you have the power to not give away that power. That's super, super important. If you don't take anything else from this podcast and this week's episode, remember that you have the power. And only when you relinquish and give up the ability to control that power, when you give it over to the negative side or the dark side, whatever you want to call it, that's when you lose the power to make sure that you don't have the negative self-talk, that you don't have the negative environment, the toxic environment, the negative self-awareness, the negative self-talk. So remember, you have the power to create and change your life and lose the self-sabotage DNA. And in closing, I want to encourage you to, as you're going through your week and your goals, I want you to evaluate yourself this week. I want you to think about what your goals are for the day and then for the week at large. And I want you to evaluate the work that you're doing, how you're talking to yourself doing that work. So your mindset, the environment. Are there things that are distracting you in the environment? Are there things that are, taking away your energy, that is not conducive and not contributing to you attaining that goal, finishing that objective, or just making that drastic change that you want to make, which takes daily, consistent work? So I want you to evaluate yourself this week. And you can also write these things down. So write down, what your goals are. I always encourage you to write your goals down, but write down what your goals are, the things that you're going to need to attain those goals. Think about how you write down how you're talking to yourself. So obviously this is a post-work thing. So write down how you talk to yourself during the action of attaining that goal. And I also want you to think about your self-awareness as you work through your goals. All right. So remember, make your goals attainable, manage your expectations, and we gotta kill the self-sabotage DNA. It's your man T-Ray the Violinist. I want to thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Power to Win podcast, where we as a community tap into our power to win. If you like this episode and you took value from it, make sure you like, share, subscribe, comment, share this with your community, share this with someone who you think will benefit from something in this episode and in the podcast at large, because that's what it's all about, because we all have the power to win within ourselves. So thank y'all once again for tuning in. If you haven't already and you would like to support and you would like to do the introspective work for yourself, make sure you go to my website, traytheviolins.com/the power to win, and get your copy of the workbook, my workbook, The Power to Win, 56 Principles to Elevate and Fuel Your Life, so you can do the introspective work to find your power within to win. So thank y'all once again. I'll see y'all on next week's episode. And remember, progress is more important than perfection. Y'all have a good one. Peace, love, and strength.